This video is for you if you still find it confusing just to understand how tracking with Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics works. And the demonstration here will give you an easier understanding to using Google Tag Manager. The simplest understanding of how Google Tag Manager works at a high level is knowing that Google Tag Manager acts as an intermediary between your source and your destination. It simply just listens to data from your source and then sends this data to various destinations. And this is literally how Google Tag Manager works. In this case, our source is going to be a Shopify store, and where we are planning on sending the data to is Google Analytics. So note that you can also send data from Google Tag Manager to other destinations like Google Ads and Meta Ads. And each of these destinations have their own different reasons for sending data to them. For example, Google Analytics is mainly for user journey analysis and user behavior analysis, while Google Ads and Meta Ads has to do with marketing data, marketing and advertisement data. To make use of Google Tag Manager on any products, like in this case your Shopify store, you simply add a script to the header tag of your Shopify store, and this allows for Google Tag Manager to start tracking data from your store. With this line of code inserted into your Shopify store, you've already started sending events data to Google Tag Manager, and it's literally as simple as that. Now, pasting this code into your Shopify store doesn't automatically send data to the destinations, but rather it just leaves the data inside Google Tag Manager. So at this point, Google Tag Manager is not yet. To insert that snippet inside your Shopify store, you simply head to Google Tag Manager and you copy the snippet from here. So right here, this is the snippet, and you go down into your Shopify store and you click on edit theme. Once you do that, you'd have to edit the code itself, the theme code itself. Once you're in the template code, you head over to layout and theme.liquid, and then you paste the code right at the top of your header tag. This code simply allows Google Tag Manager to listen to your Shopify store and receive any event that happens on the store. Now, at this point, Google Tag Manager is receiving events from your Shopify store, but is not yet sending events to other destinations. How this works is inside the Google Tag Manager, you now create a tag for each of these destinations that you want to send. Each of these tags carries the events and the parameters that you are sending to these platforms. And this is where the idea of tags come from. The tags are what takes the information down to the destination from Google Tag Manager. So now in this case, we want to create a tag that sends data down to our Google Analytics. If we go over here, you can see I already have a tag created for that. But to create a tag is simply just as clicking on new, then clicking on tag configuration, and then you select the type of tag that you want to use. In this case, we are going to use Google Analytics tag, and we select Google Tag. Now, Google Tag here acts as the base tag for sending all sorts of events from Shopify to Google Analytics. So we select on the Google Tag and we put in here our tag ID, which is our measurement ID from Google Analytics. If we go over to Google Analytics and we go down to admin, go down to data streams, then click on the data stream that you want to send data from, and you copy the measurement ID here. So this is what we are going to use. This is what is used for setting up your tag in Google Tag Manager. Back in Google Tag Manager, you place in your tag ID and then you save it. You make sure to give it a name like Google GA4 config and then save the tag. So literally with this tag, Google Tag Manager would start sending your data down to Google Analytics. And then you can click on preview to debug or test your connection to see if it's working. And you place in your store right here and you click on connect. So this will connect the debugging view to your store so that you can check if your events are actually firing. So back in the tag assistant, you can click on continue, and you would see right here all the events that is happening in your Google Tag Manager. So right here you have two tags. You have your Google tag, your GTM tag, and your Google Analytics tag. So your GTM tag tells you the tags that was fired in Google Tag Manager. In this case here, you can see tags fired and you can see the tag that we created, GA4_config. Other tags that were there that weren't fired, you would also see them, but this can be hidden. If you head over to your Google Analytics tag and check on it, you would see what exactly was sent. So in Google Analytics, this is the event that was sent down to Google Analytics. If you go over to Google Analytics and you go to your reports and check real-time overview, you would see the events page view inside here. So here we can see page view event. So this is that is the event that was sent from Google Tag Manager. And you can keep on testing out and repeating events on your store to see what fires. So that simple process of inserting your snippet inside your Shopify store and adding tags to Google Tag Manager is what allows Google Tag Manager to both receive events and send events to various destinations. When setting up tracking for Shopify, you have your base configuration, which is what we just did in the header tag. That is your base configuration. And we also have our custom pixel configuration, where Shopify allows you to create more custom events that you can send down to Google Tag Manager. Now, one of the reasons you would want to use custom pixel over the base configuration is because the base configuration often have limitations, right? They have limitations and lesser control of what you can send down to Google Tag Manager. So once you set this base configuration, all you get is the standard events that Shopify sends down to Google Tag Manager. But if you need more custom events like checkout started or purchase or product view, you would have to set up a custom pixel in Shopify. To do that, we usually set custom pixel in the customer events tab, which I'll show you in a moment. So we simply just add this code. Now this code simply means that it will check Shopify's events API for the event checkout started, and then it will push this event's name into the data layer. Begin checkout. So begin checkout is the event that you would pick up from Google Tag Manager alongside with these properties. And the benefits to custom pixel is that it gives you more control and you can do better enrichment with your data by adding properties inside the payload, inside the data payload that you're going to send to Google Tag Manager. So to set up custom pixel in Shopify, all you do is you go to settings and then you go to customer events. From customer events, you can add custom pixel over here, and you can see we already have one pixel inside here. So this is an example. This is a sample of what will be added inside the custom pixel to send custom events down to Google Tag Manager. And in this case, you can see we have add to cart events, begin checkout events, and other relevant events that you'll be sending to Google Tag Manager. This event right here is Shopify's standard events, right? The code simply says that whenever this particular event is fired in Shopify, this is what we are going to send to the data layer. Now, the data layer is another simple concept on its own, but it simply sends this particular information with the event name to the data layer, and then from that data layer, Google Tag Manager will pick up the events from there and these properties. So once you paste in your code right here, you click on save and then you click on connect. So if I save that, you can now click on connect. Currently, I have this already connected, so you can go back and you would see the status is showing that it is connected here. So with this, we've created a custom pixel that we are using to send data to Google Tag Manager. So one thing to note is while this data is being sent to Google Tag Manager, it is not yet being sent to Google Analytics 4. So you would have to go back to Google Tag Manager and create tags in there that will send this particular event to Google Analytics. So I'm going to quickly explain what the data layer is all about. The data layer is like an invisible layer that sits in between your Shopify custom pixel and your Google Tag Manager. It's not a complex thing to understand, but it's just something you should know about because you would often hear the term data layer and you might be wondering what exactly is it. So what happens is when you create your custom pixel in Shopify, this event is being pushed to the data layer. Now, this data layer, like I said, is an invisible layer in the browser or in the code that the event data is simply being pushed into and it stays inside there. Now, the moment event is being pushed into the data layer, Google Tag Manager listens to that event and collects the event data and properties. That is how data is being passed from Shopify custom pixel to Google Tag Manager. So note that Shopify sends this data to the data layer and Google Tag Manager, who is always listening to this data layer, the moment the event comes in, Google Tag Manager picks up the event and then processes the event in its own side to send to its destinations. So two important concepts to note in Google Tag Manager is literally just triggers and tags. Tags is the simplest form to understand this is tags are what you use to send the data to other platforms like Google Analytics and Google Ads and Meta Ads. While triggers is what allows you trigger this tag to send based on an event that it received. So a clearer example is if your data layer receives the begin checkouts event and then it goes into Google Tag Manager. From there, a trigger with the event name begin checkout would be triggered. And any tag that is attached to that trigger, or rather any tag that the trigger is attached to would be triggered. And then this tag would now send your data down to Google Analytics. So for a clearer demonstration, we are in Google Tag Manager, and what we want to do is we want to send a particular event from your custom events into Google Analytics. Now remember, you've set up these events, but they are not yet being sent into Google Analytics. All that is being done is Google Tag Manager receives them. Now to send this particular event, begin checkout into Google Analytics, you would have to go into Google Tag Manager and then create a tag that sends that particular event to Google Analytics. So what to do is we are going to click on New and we are going to click on Create a Tag. So we want to create a Google Analytics tag and we want to send an event to GA4 because that is what we want to do. Now, you will put in your measurement ID inside here, which you can attach as a variable in Google Tag Manager. And your event name, this event name simply means what is the name of the event that you want to send to Google Analytics, not the event that you're receiving from Shopify. In this case, the event we wanted to send was begin checkout. So inside here, you can always name the event what you want, and then it will be received from Google Analytics. Or you can use the same event name, but for testing purposes, I will put a different name. So I will put in products begin checkout. So like I said, this is the event that we want to send to Google Analytics. Now, how do we want to send this event? This is where we now have to set up a trigger. We can set up a trigger by clicking here, or we can go into the nav bar over here and set up a trigger directly from there. But we are going to set up a trigger from here. So we'll select trigger and then we'll click on plus to add a new trigger because we don't have the particular events that we want to send inside here. So when you click on plus and click on trigger configuration, you're going to select custom events. Now the event name is this particular event that we have inside here. So this trigger in Google Tag Manager is going to be sitting and be listening for this particular event. So if we put the event name begin checkout and we put it inside our trigger, what is going to happen is that this particular trigger is going to be sitting and be waiting for whenever the Google Tag Manager receives an event with this name. And the moment it does that, it would fire this trigger. So we can name this begin checkout trigger and save it. So now we have our tag, which is an event, which is a Google Analytics 4 event that sends this event to Google Analytics 4, and then we have the trigger that is attached to it. Then we can name our tag as GA4 begin checkout and save it. And just like that, this particular event would be sent into Google Analytics. Now, without setting this, all your events wouldn't be sent, right? It will just remain inside Google Tag Manager. Now, you have to submit this. You have to submit these changes that you've done so that the changes will be established. One thing to note is your events in your custom events don't usually register with the Google Tag Manager preview mode. The only thing the preview mode sees are the events from the actual theme code. This is a separate layer on its own. So if you go into Google Tag Manager, you click on Submit and you give your version a name. So we'll call this GA4 begin checkout. So definitely you can give it a better name, but let's go with this for now, and you publish it. The moment that is done, you can close this, check your workspaces, check all your tags. These are your tags inside. This is the tag that we just created. And then you can now go into your actual Shopify store and view your events. So close this, then I'll go and view my store. So what I'm going to test here is begin checkout. Let me go to checkout, and so we've already begun checkout. We can go and check Google Analytics to see that particular event that came in. So over here, you can see the checkouts event, products begin checkout, which is what we set as our event tag name. So this is the event right here, and this is what came in from Google Tag Manager here. And with that, we've been able to understand how Google Tag Manager sends and receives data to various destinations, how to set up Google Tag Manager in Shopify just by adding the code in the header tag of the theme code, how to create custom pixels in Shopify, and how to send those custom events data to Google Analytics 4. Now, one thing I didn't mention was creating those custom pixels in Shopify can easily be done with the use of AI nowadays. So you can literally tell ChatGPT or whatever AI platform that you use to help you generate the code to send custom events to your Google Tag Manager platform. And with that, guys, if you were able to easily follow this video and you finally understand how Google Tag Manager works and how to set it up with Shopify, you can let me know in the comment section below. And also, if you have any question, you can also ask it in the comment section and I'll be right there ready to answer your question. So thank you very much for watching, and remember to subscribe to the channel.